It takes a village to impact workplace performance. One of the reasons I believe that we struggle is that we have this idea that L&D alone can do it. But
Yeah.
after having been in the business, or rather in the industry, for nearly 30 years, I have not seen one instance in my career where training and development as an experience in L&D as a function was able to help the business achieve a goal on its own. I have never seen it.
You're listening to HR Superstars, a podcast brought to you by 15Five. On this show, we talk to strategic people leaders who are making a meaningful impact in their organizations and shaping the future of work. So get ready to be inspired and discover the secrets behind building high-performing teams and fostering a culture of growth and thriving. The future of HR starts here. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Today, we're going to get into one of the biggest pressure points for HR leaders, which is proving that our work drives performance. And specifically in today's conversation, how learning and development, L&D, specifically makes that impact and specifically drives the right outcomes for a business. Because let's be real for a minute together. Launching a training, rolling out a shiny new program, it just doesn't cut it anymore in today's world. Our businesses want receipts. Did we move the needle? Are we making the right impact? Are we helping get to the outcomes they need? Are we improving retention, accelerating performance, driving real results? Or is what we're doing just checking a box? These questions are really hard and often put the people teams on the defensive, which is why I'm really thrilled that we get to have our guest, Kevin Yates, here today. Kevin, you are the one and only L&D detective, and you've made it your mission to help people teams stop guessing on impact and start investigating. You give kind of both the mindset and the message to measure what matters with facts, not feelings, which feelings have a place, but we got to start with facts and really back up our work with credibility and clarity. And as HR continues to solidify our strategic place in businesses and we really close the aspirational gap for ourselves, conversations like this are so essential to the work we're doing today and what we're going to continue to do in the future. So if you've ever been asked by your CEO or by your peer execs, hey, what's the ROI of this program? How do you know that manager training worked? Then today's conversation is for you. We're going to talk about how to shift from measuring activity to proving impact, how to build trust with the business, and how to make measurement feel less like a chore and more like a strategic advantage. So let's dig into it, friends. Kevin, I want to turn things over to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you become the L&D detective?
Well, I'll share with you that it's really a name that I did not give to myself. I did not think of that myself, but rather it came from the community, the global training, learning, and talent development community. I was having a lot of different discussions after working with different peoples and teams. And a few people said to me, Kevin, you're like an investigator. You're kind of like Sherlock Holmes. You're looking for the facts, the clues, and the evidence. And so you're just like an inspector. And so that name, L&D Detective, just kind of evolved from the community. What do they call that? Like crowdsourcing or something like that?
Yes, yes.
And I love the analogy. It's actually working really well for me. I had no idea that the L&D Detective brand would take off the way that it did, but it is so true that my work is very much like Sherlock Holmes, right? Sherlock investigated murder mysteries. I investigate measurement mysteries, right? You get it? Mysteries, measurement. And, it's interesting, Karina, because some people have asked me, the M in my name, Kevin M. Yates, what does that stand for? And I have to say, no, it's not Kevin Measurement Yates. My middle name is Ashley Morton, which is my paternal grandmother's maiden name, but I digress. To get back to how I got into measurement, it's interesting because a few years ago, I was serving in a role and I felt as though I had hit a glass ceiling because I had served in so many different types of role in L&D, and measurement piqued my curiosity at that particular point in time. It was something I knew very little about, and I dived right into it and I found a new passion. And at that point, I dedicated my career to measuring how training and learning is impacting workplace performance. So that's kind of a little backstory.
Were you like a mini detective as a child? Like, was little Kevin having those same behaviors or same interests, or was this like out of left field? You never expected to be doing this at this point in your career?
So far out of left field, right? Because I mean, as recently as when I was in college, well, I can't say that I was in college recently if you look at the color of these hairs here. But my point here is that my career was actually headed down a path of accounting. Can you believe that? And I just determined, I don't have a brain for this or a desire for this. and I shifted into training, learning, and talent development as a career. And I stumbled upon the discipline of measurement and impact analytics. So it was not planned, it was not forecasted. It happened, and I'm glad that it happened the way it did because I, in essence, found where I thrive, where I flourish, and where I'm most excited. And it's just been a wonderful discovery. I actually knew nothing about the science of measuring impact until I stumbled upon it. So I wish I could say that it was intentional, but it wasn't. But boy, has it worked for me.
Yeah, obviously it's worked out for you. I absolutely love that. I think sometimes it's even better when it isn't intentional, right? When life just kind of takes you there and gets you into the right place. So, Kevin, in your career, I mean, you've worked with tons of global brands to see how learning is actually getting done. When you're called in to measure impact or to build a program that drives impact, what is the first thing you're looking for?
Thing I'm looking for is a business goal. And Karina, I know that that sounds cliche, right? Because just as a profession, we say it a lot. We don't always do it a lot, right? But literally, the first question on my mind is what is the business goal or what is the business strategy, right? The business goal is not to train people. That's our training goal. The business goal is somehow, some way to impact a business performance metric, right? The signal that determines the extent to which the business is achieving its goals. And, there could be any one of a different number of goals depending upon the business and the industry. But to go back to the answer to your question, the very first question that I ask is what is the business goal? I'm not asking how many people do we need to train. I'm not asking where does the training need to take place. I'm not asking how many breaks are we going to have and what kind of snack food are we going to have, right? I am asking about the business goal. That's the number one question for me.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. And it was interesting because most of the people even here today said that what their biggest struggle is not knowing what to measure, like where to even start. And really, again, going all the way back up to the strategy, I shouldn't even think it's cliche. It's like that's everything we do in the people function should come back to what is the business outcome you are driving? Because if you don't know that from the get go, everything that you design and deliver after that is going to be completely disconnected and really a disservice the business into your function. So knowing, hey, actually the business goal right now is we need to accelerate our skills in AI by X% by the end of the year. We need to be able to bring in this level of talent to drive this kind of product development, or we've got to increase our sales by this much. You have to be so connected to that to make sure you're designing the right thing. So I love that that's where you start. Do you find that that is a new idea when you go into even like bigger organizations, smaller ones? Like, how many HR leaders are already doing that?
I'm going to say that maybe as much as 60% of training, learning, and talent development organizations are not approaching their training programs and their learning solutions in a way that align them with business goals. I think that there is some legacy thinking, there is some legacy habits where we lead with training first, right? And I get it. I want to be empathetic. I'm not attacking, training, learning, and talent development organizations who are not quite there yet because it's a journey. And again, there are just some habits that we have that are embedded in our L&D DNA, right? So again, to go back to the answer to your question, I would say that there is less than half that is actually leading with a conversation around how does training and learning measurably contribute to business performance. Not a good number, but I do see, and here's the good news, Karina, I do see so many training, learning, and talent development organizations leaving those legacy habits and thinking behind and are more focused now on how we align our training programs and learning solutions with business performance and business needs.
I love that. And I think it's important for all of us to be honest about where we do this well and where we don't. There's no way that we get better as leaders, as functions, as an HR community and L&D community, unless we know what some of those bad habits are, those legacy habits that just don't serve us in today's world, in today's businesses. And it really is about less of like, man, this is not great that we do this versus what you said, Kevin. This is an opportunity for us to lean in differently. So when you're working with these organizations, what are some of the first steps an L&D leader should take to ensure that alignment? Like, what are some of those legacy habits we can start breaking?
It's a culture change, right? And it's not just a culture change for L&D. It's a culture change for our business partners and stakeholders because of what they are used to and because of what we are used to. And so where I like to start is a shift in mindset, in message, and in methodology, right? So what we want to do is shift our mindset so that we are thinking of ourselves as performance consultants to the business versus order takers, right? In terms of our message, I think that we need to shift how we position and articulate who we are and our value proposition. And our value proposition is one where we can produce learning solutions and training programs that measurably contribute to the workplace performance ecosystem. So that's the message. And then the method is how we go about identifying the metrics, the business performance metrics that we will use as the strongest, most credible, reliable signal for the impact of training and learning as part of a collective contribution in the workplace performance ecosystem. And so it's three things that when I work with organizations that are prioritized, it's the message, it's the mindset, and it's the method.
Which one do you find can be the hardest to overcome or requires the most kind of personal will to get through?
Think it's probably the mindset.
Mhm.
And that is again going back to this idea of what we have experienced from an historical perspective. Because again, there are thoughts and ideas that business partners and stakeholders have about training, learning, and talent development. More specifically, historically, we have been viewed as a fulfillment center. Or the analogy I like to draw, Karina, is that we've been viewed as a fast food service like McLearning, right? So our business partners and our stakeholders come to us and they say, I'd like one e-learning, two instructor leds, and a side order of virtual training to go, right? And so it's that whole mindset. And also, we view ourselves quite often as a fulfillment center. So it's you tell me what you want, and I'll give you that training. I'll throw it over the wall, and then we'll go on to the next best thing. So I think that one of the biggest challenges that we have is just around shifting and transforming the mindset, not only for how we view ourselves, but for how business partners and stakeholders view us as well.
I think McLearning might be one of the greatest phrases I've heard this year.
Okay.
It is so true. And I love that notion of it feeling like a fulfillment center. Cause I think that's what even oftentimes like where we get stuck, whether you're, L&D or talent development or just a general HR function is someone comes to you and says, hey, great, can you deliver a manager training on feedback? Just go ahead and do this. They don't even really know or understand their goal. They just think somewhere in their career they had one and they think it's a good idea. So just tick the box, just do this one thing without really stepping back and, to your point, having that different mindset and really creating a different message for the value that your function can deliver, that learning can deliver in your organization, not just here's your happy meal, go on and have a great day. Like we actually want to deliver this long-term experience, which I really, really love how you think about that. And now I want to know from you, Kevin, what do you think good collaboration looks like between L&D and other business functions?
I love that question, Karina, and I touched on it a little bit earlier. For me, there's this idea of what I call collective contribution. And collective contribution, in essence, says that training, learning as an experience, L&D as a function is part of the workplace performance ecosystem, but not the only part. And so when I think about collaboration, I'm thinking about all the elements that are part of the workplace performance ecosystem. And so I have this formula and it's called business performance plus human performance equals workplace performance, right? So keep that in mind. So when I'm thinking about business performance, I'm thinking about all the people and teams that have power and potential to contribute to business goals, including but not limited to L&D. When I'm thinking about human performance, I'm thinking about all those elements that have potential and power to contribute to how employees execute in their role, right? Their capabilities and their skills. So when I think about collaboration, I have to be thinking about all the contributions that are part of that workplace performance ecosystem, including but not limited to L&D. So that means that I need to be thinking about what the business goal is, right? And then I'm thinking about in that workplace performance ecosystem, what are the people and teams that have power and potential to contribute to that business goal? So it's not just L&D. It may be marketing. It may be research and development. It may be quality. It may be operations. It may be production. So when we're very clear about what the business goal is, and we're very clear about who is contributing to achieve that business goal in the workplace performance ecosystem, that then identifies who we need to be partnering with so that we are all working together to help the business achieve whatever that goal is. Does that make sense? And did it answer your question?
Oh, it definitely answered my question. I think what I'm taking away from what you're sharing too is really again just coming back to that mindset piece, thinking about L&D right as that one piece in this larger ecosystem of what drives business change and behavior change, how those things come together, right? Instead of thinking about it as this one siloed moment of this one learning, this 30 minutes that we have together, actually really looking at yourself again, like instead of as we sometimes do as an HR function of hey, we're just a service and delivery function. Like we come and do these things. We're actually a bigger part of the business. And when we collaborate with the right leaders, the right people at the right time, and we know the outcomes we're trying to drive, we can get those right results. We actually have a higher chance of delivering impact for the business instead of putting ourselves in the corner and hoping that it works.
Great, Karina. And where I am so very excited, I don't know if you know this or not. Well, you know, but our audience might not know. And so about a month ago, I launched my book, the L&D Detective Kit for Investigating Impact Performance. And in that book, I spend a good deal of time with the idea that it takes a village. It takes a village to impact workplace performance. And so I wanted to make sure that that idea and that message came through as powerful as possible because one of the reasons I believe that we struggle, Karina, is that we have this idea that
Mm,
L&D alone can do it. And not only us, but also business partners and the stakeholder. But
yeah.
after having been in the business, or rather in the industry, for nearly 30 years, I know it don't look like it, so thank you for saying that. But having been in the business for nearly 30 years, what I know for certain and for sure is that it takes a village. I have not seen one instance in my career where training and development as an experience in L&D as a function was able to help the business achieve a goal on its own. I have never seen it. What I have seen, Karina, is instances where, in the context of the collective contribution, in the context of the workplace performance ecosystem, and all there is that has potential and power to influence both business performance and human performance, L&D undoubtedly has a role. We have a role, but we are not able to do it on our own. So it does take a village to impact workplace performance.
Exactly. Well, I think there's a lot of that internal influence then that has to happen from your L&D leader, your HR leader to get people in that, right? And that's where that messaging part is helping people in your organization understand this is a collective goal. Like I may be driving this from the L&D seat, but we all have a role to play if we want this outcome. If you want your sales team to start showing this behavior delivering this results, this is how we're going to work together to do it, and how we have that really that collective ownership, which I think is in reality just very different. Like again, it's just those legacy habits, those legacy mindsets that you are really paving the way to change.
It's so true. And I think that it is a very empowering message and a very empowering way for us to position ourselves. We
Yeah.
are undoubtedly a cog in the wheel. You cannot take us out, right? But there are other cogs in the wheel as well. And so when all of those cogs are turning and working together, then there's power, right? The essence of what I'm saying is that I know I'm repeating myself, but it literally takes a village to impact workplace performance. I can't say that enough. You'll probably hear me say it again. It's a message that I so believe in. It is a message that I am just preaching as loudly as I possibly can, literally all over the world. Because when we want to measure the impact of training and learning, we have to consider all there is that has contributed to impact. We can't just be thinking about L&D on its own. And I want to just add a very quick caveat here, Karina, because quite often we get caught up in the idea that L&D and training and output and impact is about change, right? Changing behavior or changing something. Yes. And I want to be very clear in saying that training and development as an experience and L&D as a function also can contribute to stability, right? There are times where we need to maintain capability, where we need to sustain capability, where we need to make sure that the train is staying on the tracks. So yes, training and learning is a viable solution for change, but it is as just a viable solution for when we need to maintain and sustain performance. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
That's a very interesting perspective and reminder because I do think most of what we think about on the L&D side is I need to change this thing. The team is doing this thing today. I need them to actually do that. Hey, you all are communicating in this one way. We've got to make it better. But then we do forget about the sustaining aspect that actually, like when things are working, it's like, okay, great. I don't necessarily need to come back to that. But you think about any other thing in your life that you do for yourself that works well. You work out X many times a week. If you stop doing that, your results or whatever the benefits you are that you have will go away, right? Like you do have to have that sustaining mindset. And that is definitely even for me, like a little light bulb reminder of like how important it is to invest in the good behaviors, the good impact, the good team dynamics that already exist. We can't just assume that things will go on working the way they have forever and ever with no input. And that's probably a really important message to take back to our orgs as well. If for people on here that even sparks a little light bulb, I guarantee it'll do the same for your executives as you bring it to them.
Hope so, because again, we get caught up a lot in this idea that, training is going to be what drives this huge transformational change, right? And yes, again, it can do that. And it can also continue to sustain people where they are. It can help people grow stronger from where they already are. So let's be thinking about how training and learning are viable solutions for not only changing behavior or moving performance, but also maintaining performance.
Do you have an example, Kevin, of a company that you've seen or you've worked with who just did this well, went through this transformation really well, and was able to change how they operate, the impact that they were able to deliver?
I have, and it is probably one of my proudest moments. There is an organization that I worked for very recently, won't say any names, but very recently, where the goal was to operationalize how we measure the impact of training and learning, right? Because in the absence of measurement being operationalized, then it just becomes kind of like a haphazard kind of thing that we do sometimes and sometimes we don't. And even not even doing it the same way all the time. And so there is a way in which to operationalize measurement. There is a way to operationalize how you evaluate impact. And so for this particular organization where I was working, I believe that it might very well be one of the pieces of work that I am most proud of because even after I left that organization, that method for operationalizing how we measure impact is still in place. And that just makes me feel great, just in terms of helping organizations in a way that is sustainable, that can continue on even after someone exits or leaves the organization. And that's how it should be. Those types of things should not be dependent on one person. It should be dependent upon the culture, and it should be dependent upon how measuring impact is embedded in processes, right? So for me, I think that the best work that I've done, or at least part of the best work that I've done, is creating a structure and a strategy for how we operationalize measuring the impact of training and learning.
The performance review is dead. We're sure you've heard that one before. But is it true? Not necessarily. There's a good chance that your performance review could just use a little makeover. Luckily, 15.5 has crafted a playbook to help. In it, you'll find a thorough review of academic and industry research from a survey of over 1,000 strategic HR leaders, distilled into 5 principles to keep in mind as you design or improve your review process. Every organization has different goals and context to consider when it's designing reviews. This playbook walks through decisions, options, and trade-offs you'll encounter as you design your review process and share best practices. We'll drop a link in the show notes for you to check out. How do you differentiate between activity-based metrics like completion rates or attendance rates and true performance impact? Like, where do you see most L&D teams going wrong there?
It's a great question. And so, to be very clear, what I do not want to do is diminish the value of what we call activity metrics, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to diminish the value of the data that we get from survey responses because in the right context rather, the data that we get, say, from our LMS, right, that gives some awesome insight into how we are functioning as L&D, right? So be very clear, LMS data is valuable. Survey data, which gives us insight into how people are thinking or feeling about their training or learning experience, that is valuable as well. But to be very clear, Kareem, you will not get impact data from the LMS. You will not. And you're hearing it here first, ladies and gentlemen. An LMS will not give you impact data. So stop calling it impact data because it's not. Survey data gives us some fantastic insights on how people are responding and reacting to their training or learning experience. Now, here's the caveat I'll share. If your training and learning program is designed to impact how people are thinking or feeling, okay, then you can get that, but it's not impact that shows how people's training and learning experience is contributing to the way in which they are executing in their role that ultimately impacts business performance, right? So LMS data, survey data, it is not impact data. It is not impact data. What is impact data though is business performance metrics. So different businesses measure different things. Different business use different metrics. So you might have a metric, say, for employee engagement. You might have a metric for sales, for market share, for errors, right? For quality, for cycle time. Those are the metrics that we want to designate and use as the strongest, most credible, reliable signal for how collective contributions in the workplace performance ecosystem are measurably contributing or impacting business goals. And by business goals, I mean the business metric, the business performance metric. So my recommendation is that we stop calling LMS data and survey data impact data, because it's not, and that we start to focus on business performance metrics that give us a signal for impact, because that is what businesses, organizations, senior leaders are most interested in. Did that answer the question? I know it was a long answer, but I hope it answers the
No.
question.
No, it does answer the question. I think it's great because I do think it's important that when we go to the executive table, to our leaders in the organization, we feel confident in the data we're presenting and the story that's behind it, right? And the worst thing you can do is come with data you're a little bit murky about, and you say, this is what I pulled from my LMS, and your sales leader is like, not good enough. This actually doesn't show. Like, that crushes your credibility and your reputation, and also is not showing the right impact. But being able to come and say, hey, you came to me and asked that we reduce churn with our clients by 15% like this year. This is the program that we've decided to run. These are the results that you've seen. Let's like actually look at this together in the bigger picture. That levels up your conversation in such a different way. And sometimes I see HR leaders, and again, like I say this with love and support because I've been there too, afraid to like talk at that level, to say like, let's talk business results and connect it to me. Because it can feel like, am I actually responsible for that? Am I responsible for reducing churn, for delivering the right product launches we need to do this year, for doing all these other business goals? And the answer is yes. Like, we are a part of a bigger business function. We are one cog in the wheel, whether you're L&D or a broader part of HR talent development. Like, we're all a part of the same wheel. You should talk about those goals the same way your sales partners do, your engineers do, your marketing team does. They're your goals too. Like, don't forget that you have a place there, and you should use that to your advantage.
Yeah, Karina, it goes back to what I said. I'm going to hear it again. It
Listen.
takes a village. It
Yes.
takes a village to impact workplace performance. And so that is what we need to be thinking, and that is how we need to be thinking.
Exactly. Well, I want to come back to this village idea because we've had some questions come up that I think are actually really important and connected to this, which I think is about, what do you do when you have the village mentality? You leave the webinar today and you are ready, but your business is not. We had someone ask earlier, what do you do if your business doesn't have shared goals? If you're kind of paving the way for this, but you don't see it, how have you seen orgs navigate that well? L&D orgs navigate it where there may not be this shared set of OKRs or objectives?
That's what I like to call a real world question. And the reality, in terms of the answer to that question, is it takes time. It is absolutely possible to shift mindsets. It is absolutely possible to shift cultures. It is absolutely possible to influence processes. So the real answer to that question is, how do you create that shift if you're working in an environment where that is currently not the method of practice? Education, opportunity. It comes through articulating what it looks like and how much more successful the business can be when there is a collective contribution mindset, when there is this idea of it takes a village, when there is this idea of looking at how the organization functions in terms of it being or having a workplace performance ecosystem. So the shift comes through articulation of these ideas. The shift comes through education about what it means when you think about collective contribution in a different kind of way. The opportunity comes when you can illustrate the difference between a siloed organization and an organization that is functioning in terms of collective contributions. So, will the message be heard the first time? Maybe, maybe not. Will it be heard the second time? Maybe, maybe not. Will it be heard by the 10th time? Probably yes, because when you are consistent with that message, when you look for opportunities to reinforce that message, that is when real change happens. And I'm glad that that question came up, Karina, because I want to be real clear in saying it's not easy. I'm just going to tell the truth about that. But what I also know for sure, Karina, is not easy does not mean not possible. You can't throw up the white flag when we know what the right thing is to do, because there may be or the organization may be slow in hearing our voices. We just have to keep our voices prevalent, present, and alive, right? Because the fact is, if we want to successfully influence and impact business goals, we have to do it together. Silos won't do it. We know that. We know that. So the opportunity comes from education and articulation and persistence.
Exactly. Well, it's so interesting because there's so many people here who are experiencing that problem in one way or another, right? People who feel like, hey, I've got business partners and orgs who are working siloed, or my leaders are siloed. I have departments who are hesitant. And I really think the answer to all of these is really coming back to what you're saying, Kevin, which is you have to be able to go in there and articulate, find that message to deliver to your leaders, your partners, your HR team that is like, there is a better way. This is what we're doing today, and these are the outcomes we're getting. If we want something different, if we want to be a better performing business, have great results, retain incredible employees, have high engagement, this is what the best companies are doing. And like persistence is a skill we don't talk about enough in the HR function that I know exists. I know every single person in here listening out there in HR world are the most persistent badasses you will meet. Like you wouldn't be in this job if you weren't, because every single day we have to go back and fight the good fight. So don't be afraid to go back in there and live. Like honestly, go to Chat GPT, talk to your GPT friends, whoever it is, and say, this is the leader I have. This is the struggle I'm facing. Like navigate this together. Use that as a role play scenario. Go find your HR community. You've got over 100 of your peers and colleagues here. Find someone to connect with. Reach out to me, reach out to Kevin. There's all kinds of people who want to help leaders in our community get better at this, and you're not going to do it unless you keep trying. There is no magic wand fix of this is the thing for this leader, this org, because every situation is so nuanced. You really have to deliver and tailor it, and you've just got to keep going. You've got to keep trying.
I want to answer that, Karina, and you touched on something here. I'm glad you teed it up. One of the ways in which we can also shift the way organizations are thinking about this is kind of going back to what I said earlier in terms of our mindset. So, what I'm about to say may be slightly controversial, but here's what I believe. As L&D professionals, as HR professionals, I believe that we are performance consultants first and then L&D practitioners and HR practitioners second, right? The goal is taking a look at how we can influence and impact workplace performance, which means we need to have a workplace performance mindset at the top and that we need to lead with that. And one of the things that you teed up that I have done, and it's actually in my book, but I leverage artificial intelligence to help me function as a workplace performance consultant, because the prompt, for those of you who are using AI, that's the prompt is what you actually put in to tell artificial intelligence what you want it to do. But you can give to artificial intelligence the perspective of you. And it's as simple as using a prompt that says, act as a performance consultant. And then you follow that with what you're trying to do. And I am consistently amazed at how artificial intelligence can support that conversation that I might need to have with a business partner or stakeholder who might be a little bit skeptical about training and learning being more than what we think it is, or how we need to be thinking about training and learning as part of the solution, but not the solution. So I can say, hey, Chat GPT, function or act as a performance consultant. Here's the situation, here's the scenario. Give me some assistance with thoughts and ideas that will help with this conversation I'm about to have. And I want to be intentional by saying I use the word assistant, because I do not believe that ChatGPT or any AI tool can replace me. But boy, can it assist me. Boy, can it bolster my performance as a workplace performance consultant. So that's my recommendation, Karina.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, everyone did like double down on that. It's not here to replace you as the expert, the influencer, that right, that performance coach that you are, but it is there to bolster you. I love that perspective, Kevin, of just like, this is a tough conversation. How do I deliver this in the right way? We do not have to have all the answers all the time. You won't. Like full stop. You just won't. So go and find resources that will help you. There was a great question too, even in here around someone whose leader, has a goal to expand accounts in sales and reduce churn, but they want a learning program focused on green managers. And so how do they build that connection? I think a lot of what you can do there is even going to your AI assistant, having a prompt of, hey, how would you approach this? What is that? But in companies that I've been at, I'll just say like where I've seen that thing, like we know what the business goal is, but a leader might have a very separate goal. How do I make the connection? Is before I even try to build the story behind it, I actually just take a couple of steps back and go to that leader and say, why is that important to you? Like, can we actually align that this is the shared goal that we have, right? We're part of this village and this community. We both want to be able to expand accounts by 40% this year for new business. Is that what we're agreed on? Great. Let me tell you what I've seen work before. And let me give you my recommendations. Here's all the data that I know about your team from things like engagement, performance, retention, manager effectiveness. I can bring that and let's decide together what the right path is. Like when you take that collaborative approach, you can get to the right outcome. Don't feel like you have to stick to the exact thing the leader is giving you. Again, see yourself as an expert, as a consultant to say there might be a better way. You might actually be able to get to this goal in a little bit of a better structure.
Absolutely. And as long as you are wearing your performance consulting hat, you are focused on outcomes for skills and capability and how people are executing. And at the end of the day, that's what you want to stay focused on because the way that people operate and use their skills and their capability ultimately influences the workplace performance ecosystem, which ultimately leads to impacting business goals.
Kevin, we've got one last question here, which is around, the length of time it might take to get some of those business performance metrics. That in some organizations, you're only seeing it on a twice a year, once a year cadence of what's that final outcome. What have you seen work well for L&D teams to keep a tighter pulse on the small changes that are actually happening so they know and they can adjust their programs well?
My recommendation is for us to start creating relationships and collaboration with people and teams that we've not historically connected with or partnered with. And historically, we've not worked with the business metrics team, right? Historically, we've not worked with the analytics part of the business. We've not worked with those people who own the metrics that measure how the business is performing. So if we want to have clear insight into those metrics, not only educating ourselves on what those metrics are, how they are calculated, how often they are measured, why are they measured, what sits behind how that business performance metric is actually capturing business performance. Those are some questions that we've never really thought about, right? So the straightforward, simple answer to that, Karina, is that we must create relationships with parts of the business that are responsible for business analytics, business performance metrics, and how the business is measuring its own success. No magic answer to that question, Karina. That's just what we got to do. We have to start
Yeah.
working with the analytics part of the businesses in which we serve and which we work.
I completely agree because I bet if you dig into your organization, I guarantee you there are people measuring those business performance metrics on a weekly, biweekly, monthly, quarterly cadence. Those metrics are there. Whether or not they're reported out to the whole company frequently is another thing, but there are people who are tracking this. And if they're not, what a great opportunity for you to step in to say, hey, we're actually missing something that, again, like we could be a better business if we had this. What can I do to help and support here? What do we need to be able to get the right metrics to know that we're on track? But figure out who that is, who those teams are. And people want to tell and share with you the work that they're doing, how they're tracking it. Again, don't be fearful or nervous of who's going to want to spend time with me. People love to talk about themselves and their work. Open that door, and I guarantee you they will definitely share it with you. I want to just kind of end on a final thought here. Kevin, you shared so many incredible insights today, which I think are really transformative to how all functions should be thinking about developing their human and business performance, right? This is really beyond just the HR world, just L&D. This is about how do organizations think about preparing, skilling, and maintaining their workforce to get those outcomes now and for the future. And so I just really love that much broader, holistic mindset. And I hope that folks here today really leave feeling like you can now stop guessing, start proving your impact, and figure out where do you go to get that help. You don't have to do all this alone. Kevin, I would love for you to share before we go how can people get in touch with you? How can they get access to the book that you released if they're curious to continue to dig deeper?
You can go to my website, which is kevinmyates.com. That's Kevin, M as in Michael, Yates as in Sam.com, kevinmyates.com. And here's the exciting thing, Karina, the L&D Detective Kit for impacting performance is free. That's $3.00. Not $3.00, $3.00. So if you go to my website, you can download a copy of the L&D Detective Kit for investigating performance impact. It is a step-by-step process that identifies how to measure the impact of training and learning in the workplace performance ecosystem. So I invite and encourage everyone to go out and grab a copy. And then just in terms of staying connected with me, please follow me on LinkedIn. I'm always sharing little nuggets about how to measure the impact of training and learning. So you don't want to miss that. So yes, definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. You can connect with me on Facebook, and definitely go to my website, download your free copy of the L&D Detective Kit.
Yes, I mean, honestly, Kevin, when I found out it was free, I downloaded it and I've actually sent it to multiple people since reading it. I'm like, this is absolutely incredible. Like,
Thank you.
and I
Thank you
love
so
it. So I
much.
encourage everyone to connect with Kevin. Please feel free to connect with me too. Kevin, it's been nothing short of a joy. McLearning is my 2025 catchphrase. But let's go from McLearning to something better.
Absolutely.
That's the
Absolutely.
commitment. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Have an incredible day.
Bye, everybody.
The performance review is dead. We're sure you've heard that one before. But is it true? Not necessarily. There's a good chance that your performance review could just use a little makeover. Luckily, 15.5 has crafted a playbook to help. In it, you'll find a thorough review of academic and industry research from a survey of over 1,000 strategic HR leaders, distilled into 5 principles to keep in mind as you design or improve your review process. Every organization has different goals and context to consider when it's designing reviews. This playbook walks through decisions, options, and trade-offs you'll encounter as you design your review process and share best practices. We'll drop a link in the show notes for you to check out.